morning while he presented that budget before the joint assembly. He called it very interesting names. But then there are many who have called this budget a very ambitious budget. I've heard all kinds of things said today on the show, but my guest is very versatile when it comes to figures, statistics, and of course, when it comes down to breaking down these things. You know, for some of us, when we talk about numbers or when you talk about numbers, our brains just go mush. But for him, he's an expert. So I'm just going to let him do more of the talking, and I'll just feel like I'm in a classroom, just, with my pen and my paper. Ugo Obi-Chukwu, I have followed him for so many years, even before I moved to Lagos. He's the CEO and founder of Nairametrics Financial Advocates Limited, and he's joining us to examine the 2025 Appropriation Bill and the budget as presented by Mr. President today. Mr. Ugo, it's so good to have you join us in the studio. I know you came early. You should be a member of the police force or the Navy because you showed up early. Good evening. I don't think your mic is on. You're muted.
Good evening. Hi, good to be here. Good evening.
Great.
Some of us are not used to being on time, but we are used to being on time, so that's why we're on time.
Lovely. I like that. Great. Let's start by looking at the budget. I've heard so many people analyze this budget, even before Mr. President presented it. The figure that was given for many people are alarming, looking at how we're doing in terms of exports, in terms of petroleum, the oil benchmark. These are all the things that people consider when budgets are drawn. Also knowing that we have continuously borrowed and the old budget is being extended into June. Do you also join those who are of the school of thought that this budget is very ambitious?
Yeah, I mean, it's ambitious when you consider the size of it in Naira terms and even in dollar terms. So in Naira terms, for the 7.9 trillion, that's basically the largest ever budget we've seen in Nigerian history from a Naira point of view. But even if you try to dollarize it as well, at $31 billion, that's actually a significant amount of money. So pretty large. And if you speak to, policymakers and a lot of the guys in government behind this budget, they tend to cite a relatively known metric, which is, your budget as a percentage of GDP. And they tell you, well, it's still pretty low compared to a lot of other countries. $30 billion, we're doing less than 20% budget to GDP. And then in terms of the size as well, it's probably not even close to even South Africa, what they spend in their budget. So, but nevertheless, this is Nigeria and pretty sizable at 47.9 trillion. And what even makes it a bit more astounding is, how do you fund a budget like this? Because it's one thing to say, I want to spend 47.9 trillion.
Where are you going to get the money from?
Exactly. And if you look at the presentation that the president made today, the plan is to, get a revenue of 34.8 trillion, which by itself is also a record because in terms of how much revenue we are able to get, that's FG revenue, that is. And so that's also a massive record. Never seen anything close to that before. And so they want to do 34.8 trillion, which leaves a gap of about 13 trillion, right? So a sizable gap. Now, if you consider the fact that just maybe 6-7 years ago, our entire budget used to be like 13 trillion. Now we're seeing our budget deficit, which is usually the difference between how much you would spend and how much you earn, is now 13 trillion. And so I think that is probably the only part of this budget that's a little bit disturbing because when you run a fiscal deficit of that size, then it means you're likely going to borrow to plug that gap, because that's basically a gap, right? So you have to borrow to fund that gap. And so borrowing is a different conversation already, because that has effects on exchange rate, it has effects on interest rates, it also has effect on the private sector as well, and whether they can even have some breathing space to even borrow. So these are just my initial take on the budget.
Lovely. There are those who are very excited about the fact that, look, the army, or rather security, is getting the huge chunk, or rather a huge chunk of the budget this time around, and we're seeing a little bit of money also pumped into the area of education, maybe because of the NEL fund scheme. There are those who are also saying that, well, infrastructure is getting a little bit of pumping in its direction, but what about healthcare delivery? The president made mention of the fact that the Calabar Lagos highway that they're trying to build, the coastal highway, is also going to be an addition of sorts. But there are also those who argue that, how is this going to increase our our income one way or the other? Because right now we've lost businesses as a result of the destruction of what's along that so-called coastline. How is it achievable in any way?
Yeah. So, to your point, the president gave a little bit of insight into the breakdown of the budget. I think by maybe later today or tomorrow, we'll probably see the bill itself, and then we can all see the full down. But according to what he presented, defense and security is likely going to take about 4.9 trillion. That's a significant amount of money, and the purpose is to boost military, paramilitary, and police funding, all towards improving national security. Now, we know that if the country is secure, we have less insecurity. I think you were reading the news and you were seeing how much Nigeria spent on kidnapping alone, and so that's the kind of money that would have helped the economy and grow. So if you spend 4.9 trillion on security, and if they do spend it judiciously, then improving security would help businesses across the country. There's certain parts of this country today where businesses don't even function at all. And there's a huge part of this country, particularly the southeast, where on Mondays people don't even go to work, and it's become like a normal thing now that you have 3 days of holiday, 3 days of rest, as against 2 that you have in most of the country. So that can actually help the GDP of the country, based on that. Now, they also plan another 4 trillion or so on infrastructure and development, not to be confused with capital expenditure, which encompasses a whole lot of other things. Capital expenditure, I think they plan to spend about 16 trillion out of that 47.9 trillion budget, which is the most significant sum of, the most significant spend that they're going to have next year. And then, as you mentioned, healthcare, I also heard him say 2.4 trillion was what he wanted to spend on healthcare, mostly for universal healthcare coverage, and as well as basic revitalizing hospitals in Nigeria. So that's also something that he's saying that he wants to spend some of this money on. And then education, we allocated another 3.5 trillion, which is good. Most of it is going to go to our higher institutions. And so maybe better universities, better colleges of education, better polytechnics, with the right equipment and learning tools that they need for our children to, of course, get quality education. Seeing a lot of Nigerians now jackpot abroad, even for secondary school. It used to be for
just higher,
yeah. Now you're seeing them go for university education, and you're seeing them go for even secondary school. I even heard about primary school. So you're seeing a lot of that happening. Yeah, heard about primary school as well. So you're seeing all that happening, and that of course is the problem. Now, some of these projects, like they mentioned, would go towards. In fact, one of the 3 infrastructure projects that he did single out in the budget was the Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway.
Yeah,
essentially connects Lagos to the entire southern part of the country, which is great because that is an entire economic hub itself. And see, once you're able to connect, cities or towns, and that really helps, businesses across the country, because then people can trade easily, people can move goods and services, goods especially, faster than ever before. And then that also even opens up new cities, new towns. If they can unlock that, it'll be incredible. Now, we do know the challenges the businesses will suffer from this. And not even that, there's also the challenge of the economic impact, environmental impact assessment that people expect them to do, because it's one thing for you to want to build such a huge, massive coastal road, but it does have environmental impacts that could even essentially just wipe out whatever gain you're going to get from it. And so that's another discussion entirely. And even more importantly, do they even have the money to actually fund such a project?
I like how you're asking all my questions for me, because because I was going to say, I mean, as much as, you know, I want us to break down this budget, which we don't have yet.
Yeah.
The major challenge, and I'm guessing that if I open the phone lines now, Nigerians are going to be asking you the same thing. We've seen budgets come and go, and half the time, 15% of that budget, in fact, hardly do they get up to 15% implementation of these things that they have in the budget. And that's the query of the average Nigerian. With all of the plenty talk and you know, the grandstanding that we've seen today, what's the guarantee that, especially for the Calabar Coastal, the Lagos Calabar Coastal, how long will it take? Is there anything that would make it be fast tracked? Are we sure that we can complete it? And just as you said, where's the money? Because we just recently borrowed again to fund the 2023 budget, which is still hanging until June.
You're correct, and that has actually always been the problem. And if you look at even the 2024 budget, which they released the breakdown sometime
2024. Sorry, I beg your pardon. I said 2023.
We were doing so. If you look at the pro rata amount, we're meant to have spent, I think, 23 trillion or so in aggregate expenditure. We had done 16.9 trillion pro rata. So you see that we haven't even done. And if we even decide to look at capital expenditure, which of course is some of the things you've mentioned, we're meant to have done 9.1 trillion, but I think we've probably done like 3 trillion or so pro rata. So you see that it's one thing for you to come up with very, very ambitious budgets, but then can you actually have them cash backed? Because that's a different conversation entirely. And so, to your point, it's really pretty going to be tough. I don't know where they're going to find money from to fund this budget. I do hear that there's a 1 trillion set aside already for the Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, and whether that money is really going to be made available for the project and how far it's going to take that project is what I really don't know. So, I mean, I agree with you and your listeners that has always been the problem. Us actually being able to meet the budget plans. And then if you even go to revenue wise, we're also still nowhere in terms of revenue. We're supposed to have done 13 trillion. We were at 12.7 trillion. And so in 2024, we're already running a fiscal deficit which I already defined, of 7 trillion plus. And so not really looking that good. And so perhaps it was even surprising to hear or maybe not even surprising to hear the Senate president during his own speech say that they were going to extend. It's a funny thing about Nigeria. So the presidency or the FG has probably done 50% or so of their budgetary plans this year. And then typically the National Assembly would chide the presidency and say, look, you've not done well here, you should have spent better. What's the problem? But what you heard the Senate president essentially say in his speech was like, look, you've done so well, you've been so remarkable, even though you've done 50% of your budgetary plans. And for that reason, we're going to extend the 2024 budget to June 30, 2025. He actually didn't make that announcement. So looks like we might be having two budgets running side by side next year.
Doesn't it defeat the grand idea of running a January to December cycle as they promised, because they didn't want to do what previous governments were doing? I mean, doesn't it defeat the idea?
Well, I mean, they're two different things. So your budget can be January to December, and then if you now maybe have excess or you have projects that you haven't done. So what tends to typically happen is that once the budget cycle is over, everybody returns the money back right? That's typically how government operates. And then
But do
you
they?
can now next time, yeah. But now that's not what they're doing. So it looks like the National Assembly is saying they're going to extend now. The details are not clear of. I suspect that there might be a bill that will be passed for that itself, for them to allow them to continue to spend. Because typically, whatever it is that you've not spent, whatever it is that is left, you should turn it. But now the National Assembly is saying they are going to support them. They're going to allow them continue to implement the 2024 budget, which should have expired in like 2 weeks' time, till June next year. So it's a very interesting physical space that we'll find ourselves in Nigeria at the moment. Very, very interesting.
I like the look on your face when you're saying it, because while I was watching the whole thing play out on television, I couldn't keep a straight face because I was just too many things came to my mind, and just as you were smiling, that's how I was smiling. I was just saying, interesting times, interesting times. But let's talk more about following, tracking, because I think budget has something they call tracker, where you're able to follow up on how these budgets have been, broken down, even though we haven't seen the breakdown yet, and following through to see if what the monies are used for and what's left. And you said something about returning the monies. Nobody ever really sits back to ask what happened to, for example, I'll give you a very good example. Since I was in secondary school, well, let's not say secondary school, since I graduated from university, the Calabar to Expressway, the one that leads from Cross River to Akwa Ibom, is almost dividing into two. When Akpabio, the Senate president, was governor of Akwa Ibom, he said, he was Wiki at the time, it was Mr. Projects. He was going to support the governor of Cross River to build, then they would take the money back from the federal government. Every single budget cycle, monies are earmarked for that expressway. Where does that money go?
Well, so I mean, if I know how budget works, so typically when you say you budget 100 naira and to be spent in one particular year, and maybe you only spend 50 naira, so you have 50 naira you've not spent because the project probably moved slower than expected, or your contractors didn't move to site on time, or you didn't disburse money to them on time, and so, or maybe could be anything really. At the end of the budget cycle, you're actually meant to refund whatever is left of that project, or whatever you have been advanced as a ministry, and then in the next year, that amount is just brought back again into the next year's budget. So the 50 naira that is left would now be carried over into the next year budget. And then in some cases, which I guess is why you see some abandoned projects, the project is not represented the next year. And so that project now becomes abandoned because the contractor is just going to do it up until the advance that he had been given. And so if that project is not budgeted for the next year, then it's not going to be done. And let's always remember that budgets are actually the purview of the National Assembly. As much as it is the presidency that often presents the budget, the National Assembly has the powers to do whatever it wants to do with the budget. They can decide to pull it from here to here. They can decide to cancel projects that they feel are not worthy or not necessary or not important, even if part of it has been cash backed already. And so, yeah, so that's why you see some of these things happen. Of course, a lot of this also can be due to corruption and all sorts of misappropriation of.
I mean, this is more than 10 years. I'm talking about a road that the NDDC at some point came and tried to surface, and then it's gone back to. I'm thinking, just as you've said, the National Assembly are our representatives, and so our priorities should be their priorities. And if they have the executive power to do with the budget, what they will, how come some of these very important things are left? I'm telling you that the average person who needs to travel from Calabar to Uyo has to go by water now because you can't access that road, and it's a federal highway.
Well, so again, so now that's another context you provided, because projects like this have always been a problem, especially when it's a federal highway or it's a federal road, because what tends to happen is that even if the state wants to spend or want to invest in that project, they usually don't have a way of getting their money back from the government. Because typically, you'd have to be able to get that money back from the government since you're spending on behalf of the government. And then guess what? Most times too, you also need to get approval of the Ministry of Works and Housing and Roads and whatever they call themselves these days. So if you don't get their approval, then you can't even walk on that road. And because if you walk on that road, it's deemed illegal because it's not your road to walk on. So these are also some of the issues that state governments have had across the country. And case in point was even Lagos, where you do have a lot of federal roads because Lagos used to be the capital of the country. So a lot of federal roads here, and you see, confusion over who is meant to work on what. Is it the state government? Is it the federal government? For example, if you look at Eko Bridge is a federal bridge, but I mean, Lagos State more often than not works on the bridge. Because it's the artery that connects the mainland to the island, just as terminal is. And so that's usually the challenge that you have. Of course, this is not setting aside corruption and misappropriation that we all know happens every day at all stages of governance in this country.
Okay, well, in case you're just joining us, it's Balogun and Broad on Hard Facts, 99.3 Nigeria Info. We're live, facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. We're also live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. My guest is Ugo Obi-Chukwu. He is the CEO and founder of Nairametrics, and we're talking about the budget. We're yet to see the breakdown of the budget, but when we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit of politics. I know you don't like politics, but I will bring a little bit of politics into this and some of the things that were said on the floor today, and how this might affect the mindset of the average Nigerian who's hoping upon hope that next year might be a better offer. We'll be right back after this leg with us.
List trust on fact, whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories. We're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info. This is Hard Facts.
Get breaking news, updates, and the best of talk.
Women have to work twice, even thrice as hard for them to get things that just come so naturally to a lot of men who feel that leadership is their right.
We're in prisons for how many years?
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.
Success is like a big mansion. You only see the magnificent edifice, not the strong foundation that holds it. Likewise, in the world of e-payments, you only see transactions done and funds remitted. But who pioneered these financial technology solutions? Well, you knew it as Value Card, now Unified Payments, Nigeria's premier financial technology service provider. Yes, it starts here. Find out more at www.up-ng.com.
Unified Payments, innovations that work for you.
Start your day and have a good time. Kivo Krima. And where you need to have the break time. Kivo Krima. If not tea, or garita. Kivo Krima. Kivo Krima.
Big things, Nemo like Pepsi.
Pepsi 60cl long throat bottle is back. It's big refreshment, big value, big flex, big tins. Pepsi, thirsty for more.
Big things, Nemo like Pepsi.
Pepsi 60cl long throat bottle is back. It's big refreshment, big value, big flex, big tins. Pepsi, thirsty for more.
Lagos! Are you ready? Feel the pulsating energy of the city like never before as the Lagos State Government and Chain Reactions Africa present the Lagos Shopping Festival. It's a season of deals, discounts, culture, comedy, concerts, drinks, dance, gaming, food and fashion. It's all happening at Mobolaji Johnson Arena, Oniko, Lagos, and 5 other malls across the city of Lagos. Date is the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of December 2024. Time, 72 hours non-stop. Come with your brands, wallets, and party shoes to Africa's largest shopping festival. For sponsorship, partnership, and bookings, call 0803-710-0731 or 0704-782-7000 or email info@LagosShoppingFestival.com. Lagos Shopping Festival, a different shopping therapy. Powered by Zenith Bank, Indomie, Mini-Me, Power Oil, Omnibiz, Guinness, and First Bank.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your pilot speaking. Today we have some special passengers on board. 3 Betano members are going to England to watch Aston Villa live. Congratulations, Emeka, Yemi, Ibrahim.
Play with Betano and stand a chance to win an all-inclusive trip to the UK to watch live the big game of Aston Villa versus Tottenham. Betano, proud partner of Aston Villa. Play responsibly. Available only to those over the age of 18. The promo is valid from November 1st to February 28th, 2025.
Let me ask you a question. What holds you back when you wake up each morning? Is it the uncertainty of how the day will unfold? And as the day goes on, what makes your heart race? Is it the quiet fear that maybe you're not doing enough? And when it's evening, is it the longing for just a little more time? Whatever it is, remember, challenges don't define you, but how you rise to meet them. Staying connected to your dreams, that's how you break free from limits. Get unlimited data plus up to 6-hour battery backup to keep you connected without interruptions on Airtel 4G 5G Smart Connect. Visit the nearest Airtel shop to find out more. Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Shop on Saleco, the new online marketplace. Set on Saleco, where buyers and sellers meet. Shop on Saleco, buy from Lagos Market. Shop on Saleco, like Malogu, Alaba, Computer Village. Shop on Saleco, buyers can negotiate prices. Set on Saleco, and sellers can join for free. Shop on Saleco, shop from your home without stress. Set on Saleco, boost sales, make plenty profit.
Introducing Saleco, the online marketplace where buyers can meet sellers, explore an array of products, bargain and get good deals. Just like open markets, save more by getting up to 50% discounts on items. That's right, while also enjoying 100 Naira delivery fees within Lagos this December. Visit www.saleco.ng, SALEKO.ng to buy and sell now. Saleco, buy boku, sell Barakata. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm in love. Sonia tomato mix, stand up. Is it to open? Is it to squeeze? Is it to scoop? And is it to stir?
Sonia tomato mix in a new stand-up pouch.
5 Alive Poppy. So much pulp. So many ways to pop it. He gulps it. She chews it. He slurps it. Feel the pulp in every gulp. Everyone pulps it their way. So, how do you pulp it?
99.3 Nigeria Info, your number one station for talk. Let's talk.
Credible journalism, bridging the gap between people and those in authority. With Hard Facts, you are sure to get only the facts.
Tune in to Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
If you're just joining us, it's still Hard Facts. It's Balogo on Broad and Broad. On Wednesdays, we take you to, of course, the High Street and, of course, the companies, industries, mines, agriculture. But today, the whole country was fixated and looking at what was happening on the floor of the National Assembly as Mr. President was presenting the 2025 budget, and many questions, of course, arose as a result of that project, that budget being passed. My guest is Ugo Obi-Chukwu, who is the founder and CEO of Nairametrics, and he's helping us to make sense of what the budgeting cycle is and what this very ambitious budget is hoping to achieve come 2025. Before we enter the break, I did say I was going to ask him a very important political question while we're waiting for his audio to connect. If you want to be part of the conversation, we are live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. We're also live on Facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. You could be part of the conversation. Post your comments on our WhatsApp. You could also post your comments on the budget, the 2025 budget that is that was being presented by Mr. President earlier today. 0201-277-0993 is the number for you to call. You could also join the conversation on 0201-465-7190, only for the ladies. You could be part of the conversation on WhatsApp, 0809-5975-805. You can be part of the conversation by calling us there. Unfortunately, our guests, okay, I think his audio is connected now. Mr. Chukwu, I want to play you an audio from the Senate President talking about helping the executive with their own monies. And then you help me understand what that meant. I'm going to take you there. I have that clip from the National Assembly earlier today when he spoke about helping the executive. Here we go.
They turn to us for support. Therefore, we are committed to ensuring that we help you at the grassroots level. Let no one attempt to bring the Council of Ahithophel to bear that consistency projects Act. Those are the only things that Nigerians see in our various constituencies from the federal government of Nigeria. So I want to take a moment to appreciate the tireless efforts of the National Assembly members, both the senators and House of Representatives, who struggle on a daily basis to use their personal finances in order to help Mr. President when he's not available.
Okay, so that's the Senate President there talking about the fact that they struggle to use their personal money to help the executive when it's not available. Please explain to the average Nigerian what that means.
To be honest, when I heard that, I was wondering myself what he meant. So I think the best person to really explain this thing will be the Senate President himself, because I don't know what he was saying or what he meant. But at the end of the day, I guess maybe he's trying to say that, National Assembly members to spend maybe their own funds either when they help their community, because I heard a few National Assembly members claim that they've helped their communities from their personal own wealth, whether it's by providing transformers or helping build schools or hospitals or things like that, donations, which ordinarily perhaps the branch of the government responsible for that should have done it. But they claim that they're doing it. But you know what? I mean, there's really no way of verifying some of these things. So I tend to think these things with a pinch of salt. I know it's not a good thing to say because you expect more from those that are the ruling class. But I mean, difficult to believe these things. And you hear it a lot from politicians. So I just tend to just move my face away and just focus on the facts, and that's all that matters. Okay.
Well, Lagos wants to chime into the conversation. Join the conversation. It's 0201-277-0993 if you are male. For the female, 0201-465-7190. And you can be part of the conversation if you are listening from outside of the country. We're on Skype, Nigeria Info FM. On X, we're Nigeria Info FM. 60 seconds is all you have. Go straight to the point, please. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Hi, Maryann.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening, Maryann. Good evening to your guests as well. Thanks for bringing in your guests to help us understand the intricacies of this budget. Maryann, please, my question to your guest is this. As a realist, because I've heard so many things this afternoon, so people are saying in their opinion that let's hope and pray, let's believe, put your hope in God. So thank you for bringing a financial advocate and a realist on your show today. Sir, please, is this budget a total package that can bring restoration to the common man, or is this a complete hoax altogether? In one word, please.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aboli, for calling. I'll take another call. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Good evening to you.
Good evening. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
I'm Engineer Niyi from Yaba.
Go ahead.
It's copy and paste most of the time. You look at the Ministry of Science and Technology, you see many irrelevant things there. Then for Mr. President of the Senate, is being is using the hard fast one on Nigeria. Are they not collecting constituency fund? That is asking us questions. That is a cancer of Ahithophel. Where did he get that from? He's misquoting the Bible. With mischief of the highest order.
Okay.
They are collecting. How much did he collect as constituency fund this year alone? That is saying that they are helping the executives. They are using the alpha. It's hitting the masses, and he will receive his feedback. Just leave him within a very short time. He will receive his feedback from people who knows better what they are doing. You cannot deceive us. It's mischievous. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Take it easy, though. 0201-277-0993, the number for you to call. But I want you, Mr. Chukwu, to respond to the very first question, and then, of course, we'll take more calls.
All right. So, interesting question there, because if you go by the budget mantra itself, they claim it's a budget of restoration, securing peace, and building prosperity. Now, going by what you've seen, the numbers and the budget, if they're able to achieve, even if it's 90% of that plan, I think you could expect to see some kind of restoration in macroeconomic indicators, because that's what they said. It's also very important to define these things very well. He did mention restoration in terms of macroeconomic stability, which essentially is making sure that our GDP numbers go up, inflation numbers go down, those macroeconomic indicators. And they also said enhancing the business environment, so making businesses, better in terms of how they operate, so facilitating ease of doing business across the country, fostering inclusive growth, employment, and of course, poverty alleviation. And that's what they plan to do with the budget, because included in that budget is a lot of money they're going to give to a lot of Nigerians, whether it's through loans or through all this.
But apart from the loans and the grants in quote, this whole Babianla thing, I'm sorry for the want of a better way to describe it to the average Nigerian who's listening, this whole cash transfer scheme, do you buy into it? And how is this supposed to be a form of poverty alleviation? I'm not an economist like you. I'm not great with statistics, but I think that to the common person, I don't know how this helps.
Poverty alleviation it's actually a strategy, a government strategy that exists in nearly all countries in the world, even rich countries. So in the US, they call it food stamps. In Europe, is handouts. So you do have a lot of those things, because I think one of the downsides of capitalism is that it's usually survival of the fittest. So you would always have people in the country or in the community that might not be able to compete, or might not be able to work, or might not be able to find the right job, so they can't feed. So you have to cater for them, right? Because at the end of the day, they are all part of the citizenry. They are all part of what makes you a country, right? So yes, it does happen. Now, in fact, one of the things that the likes of IMF and World Bank and a lot of these people who have actually lauded some of these government policies, even though some of us think they're quite harsh, they've said that the government probably should have implemented some of these policies on time and even larger, right? So that can feel it more, because that's the only way people can at least absorb the impact of fuel subsidy removal and high interest rate, which is actually quite shocking. Like, it's incredible that a country can have their fuel price go from like 140 to 1,000 something in a year, and everybody's
in the space of months.
So
what year? In the space of months.
Exactly. I mean, the first one was moved last year, now, May. So in like a year or so. So, and then people are still managing, like, so it just shows how resilient we are as people, right? So so grants are fine now. But to that lady's question, to the extent that they can implement this budget, because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, then yes, it can be a budget of restoration. But based on some of the figures that you see, some of the assumptions which I spoke to earlier, it does sound like it's Houdini. Houdini is like, if you're not sure. So If they're able to achieve it, then that's just pure magic, because I don't know how they're going to do it. And so that's just the downside, because it really, really, really looks ambitious. But I don't think that it's a budget that is suddenly going to make your life significantly better in 1 year. No,
Well, that's
more than anything else, it's just a foundation for perhaps better things to come. So don't expect to see the exchange rate go to 800 to 1 next year, or food prices suddenly just crash massively. I don't think it's going to happen that quickly. But if they implement it, is it going to be a foundation for better things to come? I think so.
Okay. Well, keep those calls coming. 0201-277-0993, 0201-277-0993. If you are a lady, call 0201-465-7190. That's 0201-465-7190. I'll take a few calls and then I'll go to WhatsApp to read your messages. Hello. Welcome to Balogo and Broad.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
My name is Robert. I want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
I'm not too good at figure, but this budget, 47.9 trillion, targeted revenue 34.8 trillion, which means we have a balance of 13.1 trillion to balance this year budget. And again, this budget will not end December next year, because this year budget is running compared to next year June. Then they will mix up next year altogether. We don't know where we are going. That's one. Secondly, the projection for production of crude oil per day, 2.06 million per barrel. The benchmark for the crude, we don't know. I don't know, maybe your guest knows it. And where we are going to realize the rate the president talk about, he said there will not be importation of crude. So we don't have the refinery we have. We don't know what is the consumption of Nigeria as we speak. The proper harvest he mentioned, we have insecurity in our farm. How is this going to be realizable? Our debt profile, he did not mention about it. So these are the questions. I don't know, maybe your guest knows about this.
Thank you, Robert. You've asked a lot of questions. Thank you. Let me take another call and then Mr. Chukwu is going to respond. Hello. Hello, good evening. Anybody home? All right, call me back if you can. All right, Robert has asked you a lot of questions. Maybe I should just let you break it down. I also have similar questions, especially with the oil benchmark. The fact that the NNPC is unable to tell us how much petrol we consume daily in this country, and we're in 2024, and we are still writing budgets based on oil. Really, those questions need answers.
And that's a very important question, because this is also the reason why I had said that, this can be construed as some kind of Houdini budget because of the assumptions. And so if you look at the assumptions, for example, they are planning an oil price benchmark of $75. Well, perhaps depending on what Donald Trump and, the likes of him are doing, then maybe we could see oil price at that rate. But we know that the US wants oil prices lower so that gas prices can be cheaper in the US. So $75 maybe is there about what we're currently in now. So perhaps maybe that works. Now, the problem is the oil production. The government is targeting 2 million barrels per day. We haven't achieved that at all in the last, 5, if not 10 years. We've not been very close to that figure, at least at a consistent level. I think this year we're probably at 1.3, 1.4 million barrels per day. And crude oil output is probably one of the most important metric out there for determining how government does pretty well.
Yeah.
And so they are targeting 2 million barrels per day, and it's very unlikely to happen now. Guess what? They did target 1.7 million barrels per day in 2024. We're nowhere close to that. Now, all of a sudden, we now think we can do 2 million barrels per day with all the crude oil theft that you're hearing every day and all the production issues we have now. I do know that there has been some, investments announced in oil and gas in the upstream sector this year. A lot of those investments will start flowing next year, but I don't think you're going to see an uptick in crude oil output as much as they are predicting. Another thing they're also looking at is an exchange rate of, I think he mentioned about 1.5, to the dollar. Perhaps if we could land at that rate, that would be fantastic, because that's the stability we're all looking for. But we do know that the powder market has hit 1.7 at one point and is back to 1.650. So maybe that could also work now. But the craziest one for me is actually inflation rate. Inflation is at 34.6 or so percent at the moment. The president said that they're projecting an inflation rate of 15.7%. How is that even possible next year? I don't see how we're going to go from 34%, which some people even think is not reflective of the right inflation rate, because a lot of people have seen prices more than double this year, right? So, but anyway, so the MBS is saying inflation is 34%, but the president is saying he's going to bring it down to 15.75% next year.
I guess we all have to ask the president, how, Mr. President? And I don't know what you're telling me, but are you telling me that this might just be that we're just getting played because this is just a bit it's too steep? It's not anything close to reality.
I don't know whether to call it. I mean, I wouldn't say it's getting played, but I mean, the assumptions are just too optimistic. I mean, that's just it. So they don't really sound realistic, at least some of the things that they have here. It's very, very, very optimistic assumption. Even your GDP growth rate, he's assuming 4.something%. The IMF is actually assuming 3.2% for Nigeria, but the government is saying, no, we can do 4% plus. In terms of GDP growth rate. So the assumptions are very, very optimistic. And the thing with being very optimistic with data, with assumptions, is that when it goes wrong, it can be bad.
I think on that note, I'm going to have to let you go. Ugo Obi-Chukwu is the founder and CEO of Nairametrics, and I've had a great conversation today. But most importantly, I'm going away from this conversation a bit more confused than we started it, because I'm just not about your explanations, but I'm confused as to what exactly or how exactly the government intends to achieve, everything that they've told us in the budget. And I think that I think that I still need someone from the presidency to come and do some step down. That step down that you do after you've eaten, to drink something. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you, and we hope that you can come sometime soon in the future.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. All right, Lagos. We're going to take a break, bring you some information. David is here with a lot of information for us. And when I come back, I'll be saying my goodbyes. Stay with us.
Christmas has come early. De La Soc Properties introduces Hillcrest Villa Estate Scheme 2, located at Elerongbe, Ibeju, Lekki. It consists of 25 acres of land, offering excellent return on investment. It was 3 million before now, but Xmas discount has brought it down to 2 million. Buy one plot and get 50k gift vouchers. Or you buy 5 plots and get 1 free plot. The nearest entrance here is after Pan-African University, Elerongbe Junction, located close to the new international airport in Alaro City, Isunu Estate. And the phone number to call is 0809-999-0924 or 0809-999-0927 or 0809-999-0925. You could email at info@delasocproperties.com. or go to the website at www.delasocproperties.com. That is, De La Soc is spelled DELASOK, delasocproperties.com. Make sure you do just that. Nutratech Lagos seeks a sales and marketing manager between the ages of 23 and 40 with 2+ years experience. Well, actually 2+ years experience in retail sales and marketing, strong communication skills and resilience, and also being a self-starter. These skills will be required. The person is a Lagos resident. That will
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM. Live updates as